that used to be the favorite tagline of people who claim to be advocating for peace when what they really advocated for is Israel capitulating to the demands of terrorists. Now, there's a lot wrong with that statement, including the use of self, but in a sense, to the extent that you can accept that a group of people can determine together their path. Nobody has determined their fate better than the Palestinian people. What we are seeing today in Gaza is the Palestinian people exercising their right to self-determination. It's really shocking when I go obviously on social media, but even when I just look at the news and I hear about Israel's offensive in Gaza, that people really seem to supposedly forget, although I don't give them that benefit of the doubt. I think they're actually lying and claiming that, uh, completely ignoring the fact that the Palestinians not only started this war on October 7th, but are continuing it at every single moment of every single day. They can end it. I don't agree with Israel's policy that just bringing back the hostages and surrendering lets the Palestinians off the hook for everything else they've done, but that is Israel's policy. So the fact that there is war, that is Palestinians' choice. The fact that, it started is their choice. The fact that it's continuing is their choice. And if you listen to them, whenever they talk, they explain to you, we want this, we will continue this. We're going to hear some of the Palestinian people on this show. Welcome to the reality show. I'm Razi Ginsburg. I'm joined by Michael Kaufman and James Valiant. Michael, your thoughts on Palestinians' right to self-determination?
Well, I think everybody has their right to self-determination. The Germans picked Hitler. The emperor obviously inherited the throne in Japan. There was Pol Pot. There was Genghis Khan. There are Napoleon. There's a bunch of people that have led countries. Rarely have countries been started where their charter actually depends upon or fosters the annihilation or supports the annihilation of another country, especially one that's next door and also much stronger. But Gaza is a special case, are most of the Islamic militant countries. They pretty much get to behave like naughty children who want to basically have Sharia law and bring us back to the 7th century while using all the munitions and iPhones and so on that we've invented here in the West. And then we're not supposed to hold them accountable for what they choose to do with what they've elected. At the same time, the Europeans are well on record, for example, of saying that Israel has to behave better. We expect more from Israel. Israel should behave like civilized people, especially when they're attacked. I think that Israel should behave like any country. And if they're attacked, I think they should kill the people who attack them. I think that that's the only actual legitimate purpose of a government, is to protect its citizens. And I think that when there is a group of people next door to you that says we want to annihilate you, and we have the missiles and we are using them, and we've come in and slaughtered your people, we not just on October 7th, but they were doing this way before then, multiple times, that they should be not only allowed, but they should be congratulated for fighting back and destroying them. The last point I'll make is that the rules that apply to Hamas and many of the other completely uncivilized Islamic countries don't seem to apply to anyone else. Those we just let them go because, after all, they're kind of haven't gotten it yet, and they're kind of tribes, etc. This is absurd. Dead people are dead people, and the job of a government is to protect its people. That's what I think, and I think Hamas should be held accountable. And to the extent that every last Gazan will continue to support the annihilation of Israel, I think they should all be annihilated themselves if that's what they want to do.
James, we wrapped up the Daily Objective by talking about our plan for a future conference in the Gaza hotel, casino, strip club, resort, whatever we're going to build there. But it actually
GM
reminds me.
Grand.
It reminds me that, in the 1993 Oslo Accords, the peace, that was when we had peace between Israel and the Palestinians, which
Yeah.
involved bringing Yasser Arafat and 15,000 of his terrorists from Tunisia to govern the West Bank and Gaza, giving them the arms they needed to protect Israeli citizens from the Palestinians. Part of that deal involved building a casino in Jericho, which uh, Palestinians were not allowed to go to. But for Israelis, there were free buses. I remember that we had free buses to go to the casino. I was too young, but yeah, that was a thing. Uh, and even then, people were pointing out this is Israeli money being poured into the bullets that are going to kill the same Israelis in the future. Um, and yeah, the way of peace has brought war, and that is specifically with the Palestinians. They have used every so-called peace agreement with Israel as a way to kill more Israelis. What is self-determination if we're going to actually look and listen and not West explain to the Palestinians what they truly want?
Well, I in the during the Daily Objective, I quoted H.L. Mencken, and you don't have to be a democracy to get the government you deserve, good and hard, as he put it. Democracy, he said, being the theory that people know what they want to get and deserve to get it good and hard. Uh, People get the governments they basically acquiesce to. It doesn't even have to be a democracy. I mean, look at the French Revolution. Look at all the other revolutions in this world. Look at all kinds of instances in history where people have risen up to tame their government. How about Runnymede at Magna Carta back in 1215? My British friends, yeah, you can rise up, change your government, make it less tyrannical. Now, so people, in other words, people have self-determination. What the government is generally reflects the majority opinion of the people who live there. Just get over it, whether it's a democracy or not. So the Palestinians have the government they want. Let's not pretend otherwise. They have the kind of policy that they want. The Oslo Accords were, of course, you see how successful appeasement is? You see how successful I mean, I'm old enough to remember when people said, all we have to do, like you say, bring Yasser Arafat back, bring him into the thing. He's willing in theory to recognize at some point Israel's right to exist. See how well appeasement worked in the Oslo Accords? No, total BS. Now, you talk about the right of self-determination. Well, nobody has a right to create a dictatorship. Nobody has a right to oppress or violate the rights of their other people, including the government they install in power. You don't have a right to vote Hitler into power. It's still an illegitimate government. Democracy is not some magic pixie dust which confers legitimacy, moral legitimacy, on a government. If we have a room full of 10 people, my example that I always use, room full of 10 people, 9 of them decide to beat up the 10th person, that 90% supermajority does not make beating up the 10th guy morally okay. Democracy is not some magical elixir which confers moral legitimacy on a government. No, only to the extent that a government recognizes individual rights does it have legitimacy. So no, nobody has a right to elect a government that would oppress its own citizens or cause a war. No, no, that is not a moral right. In effect, though, people have the power to control the government over them, at least the large mass of the people living there, and they could do some, and in most cases, people can do something about it. People get and have the governments they deserve. So let's not pretend that that Hamas isn't a reflection of the Palestinian view, opinion of the man on the street sort of opinion. They are. They do. They have the government they want. They've had the government they've wanted for the last 20 years, or we would have seen them rise up and take out that evil government. No, they're perfectly happy. They're perfectly happy to exist in order to destroy Israel. As Dr. Kaufman points out, it's built into their charter. It's built. They don't exist for protecting the life, liberty, and property of their citizens as a governing agency. They exist to destroy their neighboring country, Israel. That is their raison d'être. That is their purpose. Their telos, if I could use the Greek term. That is their end. Their goal is to destroy Israel, and they don't much care about life on Earth. These are mystic savages who are perfectly willing to let their own babies get killed and used as human shields in order to achieve this noble end of destroying Israel and killing as many Jews in the area as they could lay their hands on. Are you kidding? They get the Palestinians got the government they deserve and want. That has to be the assumption as we walk in. We cannot make this artificial distinction, which after all of these decades is absurd on the face of it. Patently absurd. The Palestinians are Hamas. Hamas are the Palestinians. And I don't care what the factional divisions are and which terrorist entity they would happen to prefer, this group versus that group or that group. They're all mystic savages who want to destroy Israel out of their anti-Semitic hate. That's all there is to it. They're collectivists. They're mystics. That is the enemy. The enemy is the culture of Palestine. Palestine, I put that in quotes. Palestinian, we'll give them the word. This is Palestinian culture, a death cult.
Now, when you see any of those pro-Palestine, which are really anti-Israel protests anywhere in the West, what you never really hear from is Palestinians in their own words, in the language that they speak. We're gonna make an exception here to that rule. You're not just gonna hear from these three Zionists. You're gonna hear from the Palestinian people. Let's start with this phone call from the IDF to somebody whose house, we were just talking about this on the Daily Objective, when Israel bombs a building, it calls people, tells them to get out. This was one such call.
حتكون كبيرة جدا، في خطر كمان عليك. لازم تطلع من البيت انت والأسرة وتبعدوا كمان نص كيلو. تمام؟ كم واحد معك؟ كم واحد معك في البيت؟
أسرة كثير. في عندك
لازم يطلعوا كلهم. كم كثير؟
يعني 20 كل الأسرة.
كم عائلة؟
3 عائلات.
تمام. يحكي مع الإخوة. أنا بستنى لحد ما تطلعوا. ما في عندنا كثير واجد. تمام يا أبو يونس.
إحنا إبعاد عن البنك.
اسمعني هذا خطير. يطلعوا من البيوت ويبعدوا كمان نص كيلو. كمان الختيارية وكمان الأطفال. هذا بعيد. القنبلة حتكون كبيرة.
يا حبيبي أنا بقدرش أطلع كل الناس هذول أنا بدي أقل شيء ساعتين عبال ما كلهم يطلعوا.
يا أخوي لو ما بتطلع أنا بطوح.
أنت طخ أنت حر طخ اللي بدك إياه سويه اللي بتنزل الأرض وتطلع.
واحد لازم يعمل كل شيء منشان ما تموت.
احنا بدنا
عندك مسؤولية على الأطفال.
بدنا نموت. كل الأطفال لازم يموتوا.
لا سمح الله بدك تستشهد
عشان تبين بشاعتكم. الله يلعنكم. اللي بترمي السما تتلقى الأرض. سووا اللي بدكم إياه. اسمع ما تقنعني. أنا ما بدي أطلع من البيت. اقصف البنك، اقصف الدار، اقصف اللي بدك إياه. سوي اللي بدك اياه.
يا ابو يونس ودك الاطفال يموتوا؟
انت خلص بدكاش الاطفال يموتوا ما تقصف البنك حيطان. شو قاعد تقصف حيطان؟
يا ابو يونس هذا مش بايدي. بقول لك صراحه مش بايدي. انا بايدي شيء واحد. انت حتعيش بسلام.
انا بدي
انت والاولاد.
السلام اللي من عندكم ما بدنا اياه. السلام اللي من عندكم ما بدنا اياه.
لو ما بتطلع من البيت هذا انتحار. هذا
حرام. اللي بدك اياه سويه.
حرام من القرآن.
انت بتعرف القرآن؟
لا.
انت اصلا في القرآن ملعون.
I think we get the gist of it. What bothers me listening to this, because I know and expect this from the Palestinians, they want their children to die, and he's saying here clearly, we're happy for ourselves and our children to die so that the world will use this as propaganda against the Jews. But first of all, it's pathetic that this call is even happening. If you need to bomb the place, you bomb it. It's whatever you want to bomb there. By letting the families know and getting them out, you are also getting whatever it is that you're targeting out potentially. But the Quran forbids it. Come on. Stop it. Just stop it, Israel. Stop trying to appeal to your enemy, and look what happens when you do appeal to your enemy. They want their own children dead. Michael.
They've wanted their own children dead since the get-go. I mean, this is the culture. When Hamas took over in 2006, they destroyed all of the farming buildings and all of the greenhouses and everything that Israel had left in order to become martyrs. They would rather starve to death and have heat stroke and so on in the desert rather than take something from the Jews that the Jews had left intact, by the way. And many of the Jews left it intact because the Jewish army, the IDF, extracted them violently from the Gaza region. They've been doing this from the get-go. And folks, don't forget, this call comes after a couple of weeks of leaflets being dropped and warnings, et cetera, that Gaza City was the next to fall and was hopefully the last to fall. This is not something new. I mean, I share your frustration, Razi, that this is absurd to be calling these people who, after 2 years of getting absolutely destroyed, I mean, I don't think the Germans or the Japanese didn't allow their population to be so displaced and so leveled, their entire country to be so leveled. They did allow a second atomic bomb, which our current liberals love to forget, that one atomic bomb wasn't enough in Japan. But after the second atomic bomb, the emperor gave up. Hamas would not give up after a second atomic bomb. Hamas has seen every major city in Gaza destroyed and leveled, and tunnels filled in and buildings razed. And they have not given up. They are not going to give up. There's no chance they're going to give up. And as long as we have the idiots around the world that support this notion that somehow Israel has done enough because it's disproportionate at this point, they will continue to do this crap. The last point I'll make is not only does Hamas love to have martyrs, but they even manufacture them. We've seen plenty of pictures of kids that have died 5 or 6 times. Some that weren't even in the war zone that have died in the war zone 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, and also dead kids scratching their feet and stuff. Yeah, Michael, you're a doctor. You can tell us if that's a thing. Thank you, Bronx Guy Gun Hill Road, for the super chat. James, one of our most dedicated trolls in the chat says, is this video supposed to be an IDF flex or something? So the Jew blew up a civilian apartment building. That's very telling about the pro-Palestinians outside of Gaza, and around the world. It's not about children in Gaza. That's all they ever say. They talk about Israel killing children. They talk about Israel targeting children, which is next level, idiocy. But they don't actually care. This is about the Jews for them. And if it means a bunch of children dying on the way, probably for them, it's probably a good thing.
Yeah. The warning really is insane and counterproductive. You hear the person say response, when you give that warning, you're telling them that you're morally disarmed. And boy, was the caller willing to take the other side, the moral righteous side, trying to take the moral high ground on the warning call. Now think about all that anti-Semitic bile from the caller, the commenter you just quoted there, Jews bombing a building, okay, well, you're completely blind to the fact that Israel is taking unprecedented and, in my view, immoral steps in warning the population. The so-called civilian population, if it dies, it's the fault of the aggressors. But we see here, there's no daylight between the Palestinian population and the tactic, the strategy of suicide, in effect. These people are a suicidal death cult. They don't mind if they die, if their children die. They're all about death. They're willing to use the death of themselves and their own children as a propaganda device. They understand the strategy of Hamas. They're on board with the strategy of Hamas. And Israel is only diminishing the effectiveness by warning these people. But they're admitting, in effect, that, well, if there were, children in that building, we wouldn't have moral sanction to do it. Yes, you would. Whether or not there were women and children in that building or not, you would have every right to blast that building out of existence, Israel. Do not surrender 1 centimeter of the moral high ground to monsters like this who are willing to kill their own children in the cause of destroying Israel in their fight against civilization itself. No, there's absolutely no daylight between the Palestinian populace and their terrorist leadership. They're on board, they understand the philosophy, they understand the strategy, and they're willing to go with it. And it was so funny, outside observers, like the commenter, are utterly blind to the unprecedented steps Israel is taking to avoid so-called civilian casualties that they ought not to be taking. Look at the response. They know it's a weakness. They know that concedes a moral point, that Israel should never concede. But this ordinary Palestinian guy on the other side of the phone here, he gets it.
Okay, there's a bunch of other stuff we want to play, and there was a tweet that I saved earlier that I wanted to read, and now I don't know how to find, Daniel, if you can tell me how to find the tweets that you, what's it called? Yeah, when you add to bookmarks. Oh, okay, I think I might be able to find it, but if not, let's just play this clip that we've played in the past, but it's a good reminder of who the leadership that the Palestinians chose and have done nothing to remove, who that leadership is, and here's what one of them had to say after October 7th.
إسرائيل دولة لا مقام لها على أرضنا. إحنا الدولة لابد أن نزيلها، لأنه بالفعل هي تعتبر كارثة أمنية وعسكرية وسياسية للأمة العربية والإسلامية، يجب أن تنتهي. لذلك إحنا لا نخجل من نقول ذلك بكل قوة، إنه إسرائيل لازم نأدبها، وحنأدبها مرة ثانية وثالثة، ومش هذا حتكون طوفان الأقصى أول مرة، لا حتكون ثانية وثالثة ورابعة، لأنه إحنا لدينا إصرار ولدينا قرار ولدينا إمكانيات أن نقاتل نعم. ونحارب، لكن كما قلت لك بدنا ندفع ثمن. نعم إحنا مستعدين، معلش بدي أقول لك بشكل واضح، إحنا اسمنا شعب الشهداء وبنفخر أن نقدم شهداء. إحنا لا نريد أن نمس لا بالمدنيين ولا أن نلحق الأذى بهم، لكن أوقات لأنه في تعقيدات في الميدان صارت في منطقة موجودة، وكان هناك في احتفال وكان في سكان وفي منطقة واسعة ليست سهلة على امتداد تقريبا 40 كيلومتر. يجب أن ننتهي.
أن ينتهي وين؟ بقطاع غزة؟
ينتهي إلى لا، بتكلم عنه كل الأراضي الفلسطينية.
كل الأراضي الفلسطينية يعني زوال إسرائيل.
Yeah, the annihilation of Israel. Yeah, interesting. I didn't remember the part about, oh, we didn't want to kill civilians, but there happened to be a party there. No, you went to that party to kill as many people as you could. You didn't stumble upon it and then not know what to do, so you just started killing. The whole thing was about killing civilians. The soldiers were killed because they were in the way and because they're Jews and Israelis, and why not? But yeah. Again, he's saying we'll repeat it again and again until Israel is annihilated. I don't know how you annihilate a country, by the way, without killing civilians. And he's saying, we're a nation of murderers. We understand there's going to be sacrifices. So remember, anybody who's calling for a ceasefire, I'm not talking about this is not what the pro-Palestinian side is calling for. But anybody who's calling for a ceasefire now is calling for giving this person an opportunity, this person and these people an opportunity to regroup, to rearm, because right now they're struggling in their cause of killing Jews. They can kill from the West Bank. It's a bit easier. In Gaza, basically, it's only Israelis coming into Gaza, to fight that they can kill. Michael.
Yeah, look, they're very proud to be a nation of martyrs. The first thing you have to ask yourself is, what has this group contributed to themselves or the world? They have done nothing. The fact that we have moronic college kids and, frankly, plenty of high school kids and their idiot followers running around on campuses in US and Europe and other Western countries, cheering on these murderous, utterly useless savages who don't value their own lives, never mind the lives of anybody else, and they're being supported is ridiculous. Our teachers are teaching that being a slovenly country that never fostered human flourishing and never stood up for citizens' rights, never mind women and LGBTQ and so on, are teaching them that these are good people who are the victims of oppression. And therefore, Israel is in the wrong, and the US backing Israel is in the wrong, and we're all committing genocide while the population grows and so on. This is the most despicable part of the whole thing. The last part of it is that Israel continues to behave in a way that's essentially suicidal, at least to its own soldiers. How many soldiers has Israel lost over the past 2 years in what could have been a much shorter campaign in Gaza if we hadn't worried about the so-called innocent civilians in Gaza, which Israel helped perpetuate, and certainly the Biden administration absolutely fostered the whole notion. of innocent civilians, despite what, and we'll talk about it later, I suppose, what every poll has shown and what Razi has said earlier, which is there is no difference between Hamas and the Gazans. And even if you happen to be in the minority of Gazans who actually like the Palestinian Authority, which is fostering terrorism and pays terrorists to kill other people and pays families of terrorists when their relatives kill other people, including blowing themselves up, it's the same thing. It's about death, martyrdom, and wasting everything. All of these buildings that have had to fall in Gaza, all of that economy that was the minimal economy that was built, not to mention the icebergian view of the 90% of what's underground where most of the money was spent. Just like an iceberg, you see 10% on the top, 90% of the money or so of the aid that was sent over by all of these liberal, wonderful countries, in addition to Qatar and Iran, went to building terror tunnels and places for Hamas and to build missiles that could kill Israelis. All of this stuff coming together is exactly what the Gazans have supported and will continue to support, because like this fine father said on when he was asked to get out of there and take his family and his kids out of there, and when this so-called leader said, they want to die. Now, Donald Rumsfeld, whether you agreed with him or not, had a very good line. They want to meet Allah, we will help them. And the only policy that makes any sense, and my son was in the IDF and is a reservist in the IDF, the only policy that makes sense when people tell you they want to kill you is you kill them first. We don't even have to do that. We, Israel, already got killed. We already had 1,200 plus people killed and 900 soldiers killed and 250 hostages taken. We don't have to be the first mover here when people threatened us. This is all, by the way, in the last 2 years. It doesn't count any of the Jews that were killed over the last 20 plus years since Gaza took over or since the inception of Israel by the United Nations back in 1948 and so on. The entire thing is so beyond reality and so beyond human flourishing and the things that all the do-gooders pretend to support that it boggles the mind how anybody could even begin to think that these people can self-govern in a way that they will ever let their citizens grow and flourish. Never mind, leave Israel alone. We don't care if you grow or flourish yourselves, but don't mess with us.
I mean, we'd love it if they wanted to grow and flourish, but they want to kill and are happy to be killed in the process. Thank you, Jonathan, for the super chat. Thank you, Jonathan, for another super chat. Thank you, Jonathan, for another super chat. I think Jonathan is trying to start something here. Remember, that money goes towards this Zionist propaganda. So yeah, consider supporting it as well. And thank you, Phil, for the super chat. Phil says, a phobia is an irrational fear. If the UK, in the UK, attempts are being made to redefine the word Islamophobia. How, when the word itself is an oxymoron? Very, very good question. James.
Yeah, a phobia is an irrational fear. A fear that, it's a neurosis where there's no actual reason for fear. If someone's pointing a gun at me, I'm going to feel fear, and it's going to be a perfectly rational, perfectly reasonable response. Islam is given the world plenty of cause to rationally fear it. And I'm just going to say it that nakedly. Islam today, the dominant understanding of Islam in the Muslim world, is a terrifying thing. How many instances of terrorism does the West, does civilization have to put up? Israel happens to be on the front line and taking the hardest hits because they are on the front line of civilization. But how much murder, slaughter, how many attacks against how many nations, disrupting international trade in the Red Sea? I mean, again, it is insane. Islamism today is a valid threat to any civilized country. And to call that phobia is really bizarre. It's like you're calling a person who has rational concerns for his safety and the safety of his family some kind of neurotic. Oh, well, you should be able to take, 9/11. You should be able to take, Khobar Towers 100 times over. You should be able to take intifada after intifada where buses get blown up and civilians get it. You should take it. Just suck it up. And now look at the moral high ground that this guy's got. Okay, it is a sick, twisted, anti-life high ground where he says, yeah, well, civilians died, but civilians basically got in the way. You correctly pointed out they were targeting civilians. They were targeting civilians on October 7th. So, but his whole idea is, well, if civilians get in the way, we have this glorious cause of destroying Israel, which is a catastrophe in its very existence. So we're perfectly prepared to be martyrs. And so here it is, the Israeli government saying, get out of the building. That only encourages that moral sense in them. Joe Biden, Dr. Kaufman, in trying to build that pier to get food aid, which we know would be taken by Hamas and used by Hamas in any case, to get food aid in there. They get the message. They get the message that Israel and America really don't have the moral backbone to do what's necessary. That's all we do when we do things like that. We signal to the enemy that, okay, we're morally disarmed. You guys are the morally righteous ones, even if you're a total death cult killing your own children, even though you're the ones targeting civilians. But heaven help Israel if a civilian should, quote, civilian, should accidentally get killed. No, this guy's attitude towards civilians, get to hear it. Okay, civilians got in the way. They happen to be in this territory. No. On October 7th, they used rape systematically as a tool of attack at multiple locations. They mutilated bodies. They killed babies. This was a direct attack on the civilian population itself, which is all that this monster's words, I don't use the word human being for this thing that just spoke. This monster's words actually mean. He is out to slaughter the babies of the more civilized country. Full stop. This guy feels he has the moral high ground based on his religion, and he's happy to be a suicide death cult. That's what we're up against. That's why you don't build piers to get food into them. That's why the civilian population, the so-called civilian population, has to suffer. I mean, I can't say it in any other way. These people understand the power of morality, and our own, in the West, our own twisted morality, where we don't think we have a right to defend ourselves, even though our civilians are being killed, whether it's on 9/11 or October 7th. How many more civilians in Israel and America have to die before we get the message these Islamists hate life? He said it out loud. We're willing to die. They are a death cult. They are opposed to Western civilization. They will kill as many Jews and then as many Americans as they can get their hands on. When will it sink?
Yeah, that guy is proof that you can have a great name and still be evil. His name was Razi, in case you didn't, in case you missed it.
There have been plenty of Jameses who've been questionable in history too, believe me.
Yeah, there's also a Michael in the chat. Actually, didn't I say we're not going to name troll? Okay, sorry about that. All right, let me go to the tweet that I saw earlier that I was gonna mention. By the way, I think, Daniel, the rule is, since I now named that troll, we have to remove him because not naming trolls is a policy that if you accidentally violate that policy, there's going to be collateral damage, and
Collateral damage.
it'll be the trolls who suffer. So Rolling Stone was yesterday. We talked about what's going on in Hollywood, and what's her name, Hannah Einbinder, who
May I just say, she gets up on that stage at the Emmys and she says, "Free Palestine." I want her to concretize with this guy that the clip you just played. That's what she's for. She is actually articulating the slogan of these people who want intifada, who want civilian slaughter in Israel. That's what she is supporting, is monsters like this, when she lets words like "Free Palestine," the very slogan that was used by the monster who killed those 2 Israeli embassy workers in Washington. I mean, that's what's coming out of allegedly civilized voices. A Jewish actress in America. Can you imagine how twisted people have to be in the West to have reached the point of moral bankruptcy that we reached in the West, where actresses can get up there and name the slogans of genocidal monsters who'd be happy to slaughter all of Israel in another wave of intifada violence, and coming from a Jewish actress, mind you, in a civilized country? It is mind-boggling.
one of Hamas's media outlets showed this, but they kind of blurred out because she was like her shoulders were shown, and yeah, they don't like that kind of stuff. It
Yeah,
makes
James, just to add to that, I mean, I agree with you completely, of course. And every kid, every moronic kid and idiot that's running around college campuses, many, by the way, with Jewish administrators, including Jewish deans, who are supporting all this, and not to mention Bernie Sanders, who's one of the most anti-Israel people around, and Chuck Schumer, who seems to be befuddled by everything, a Jewish guy in New York. They all are supporting this kind of notion. I mean, this unfortunately what's happened in the West is we stop associating these things. And Free Palestine becomes this idiotic slogan of people that are righteous and feeling bad for these poor, oppressed, useless idiots. But they're not poor, oppressed, useless idiots. They're actually murderous, genocidal, Islamic law loving, or that's what they claim, group of people who want to ruin the entire West. And they want to use all of our weapons and all of our technology that we've developed here in the West to do it. And we have these morons throughout our entire society that support it. And the last point is we've still got many of the Jews voting for Ondami in New York. I mean, this guy is actively anti-Israel. He's anti-Western, he's anti-capitalism, he's anti-anything successful, and you've got Jewish people supporting him. So I don't think we can use any sort of religion-based or anything. The Jews are, in a lot of ways, and it's a lot of why you have this problem in Israel with this lack of moral backbone. They are a very confused people with bipolar opposing views that just cannot see straight. And they feel so bad for all the oppressed minorities, that's the excuse given anyway, that they just can't understand why anybody would want to murder them. And the Jewish thing, the last point I'll say is, if the Jews believe that if we Jews would just do X, people will like us. And this is after the Holocaust. That's how stupid, as a group of people, we are.
Yeah, I accept no responsibility for the stupidity of other Jews.
But it is, as a group, you know,
Present company
majority
accepted,
of us are stupid.
Yeah, but that runs true generally with educated elite Americans, whether they're Christian or Jewish.
Sure.
It's like they don't recognize that, look, you can give them all the food and all the education that you can avoid bombing their mosques and hospitals. It will not gain you an ounce of moral credit on their side. They don't care. They'll see it as moral weakness. They'll see it as decadence on your part. They'll take advantage of it. They will, in fact, that is as we heard from the guy himself, that is the PR wedge that they have, is the West's lack of moral self-esteem. If we had self-esteem in our civilization as such, okay, we wouldn't put up with this kind of nonsense. What we're doing is we're signaling our moral compromise, which only encourages their zealous religious zealotry, their sense of righteousness. It is hard for me to even fathom Jewish intellectuals who take this anti-Israel position, or American intellectuals and politicians who are apparently hell-bent on the destruction of Western civilization. I don't get it. It's the self-loathing, the suicide of the West. That's the only way you can really describe it.
All right, let me get to this tweet because I learned how to find my bookmarks, especially so I can read it. So first of all, this is a Rolling Stone tweet, but what I'm interested in is the quote tweet of it. But the Rolling Stone tweet starts with the quote, "Fuck ICE and free Palestine." They're forgetting the Go Birds. It was Go Birds, fuck ICE and free Palestine. Anyway, fuck ICE and free Palestine, Hannah Einbinder said while accepting her award at the Emmys, calling for a ceasefire in Gaza and condemning ICE while wearing an Artists for Ceasefire pin on stage. Now, I have no idea what Artists for Ceasefire is, but the pin shows what we used to refer to back when I was in Israel as the Hands of Oslo. This was the guy when in 2000, two Israeli reserve soldiers took a wrong turn, were arrested in, was it Jericho? in some Palestinian city in the West Bank were taken to the police station, and then the people of the city heard that there are Israelis in the police station. Ramallah, thank you, Daniel. Heard that there are Israelis in the police station, stormed the station, took it over, lynched them, threw them out of the window. I remember because the videos were shown on the news. And then one of the murderers, there's a picture, a famous picture of him looking through the window, showing his hands, and his hands were covered in the blood of the soldiers he lynched. This is what this idiot is wearing as a pin, this Jewish idiot, because she would get the exact same fate. So this was the tweet by Rolling Stone. Now the quote tweet by somebody who also claims to be Jewish says, "Bitch, she isn't calling for a ceasefire. She is saying from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." And that's true. That's what they are saying. That's what Israel refuses to listen to. That's what so many of us are pretending, not present company, absolutely excluded, but so many people are insisting on pretending like this is somehow not about killing all the Jews when they are telling you, and even some of the Jews on this side are kind of telling you that that's what they mean. Michael.
First of all, this whole artist bullshit. I don't know if you saw the 4,000 artists from Hollywood and all the other people who live in reality, quote unquote, of make-believe in Hollywood and so on, signed a thing that they don't like, is basically they hate Israel, and they think it's terrible what they're doing to the poor Palestinians, et cetera, et cetera. And look, when there's another terrorist event in US or Europe, and the fact that 90% of our resources approximately in all of our protective services are geared towards blocking militant Islam and keeping an eye on Muslims, that doesn't bother any of these people. And the fact that there were trains blown up in Spain and in London and other places, and many terrorist attacks, 90% of which are committed by Islamic militants, none of this enters into any of the discussions of these completely flaky, absolutely ridiculous people. By the way, Natalie Portman, another, an Israeli-born actress, very flagrantly anti-Israel, hates Bibi, hates all of Israel, terrible what they're doing. We should have just taken it after October 7th. This has all been taught, and I think we don't give enough blame and point the finger. This is all what's being taught in our high schools and colleges in our so-called humanities group. This is all moral relativism, that if enough people believe something, it's okay. Everybody's equal. It's the Barack Obama, all societies are basically not good and they're all not evil. They're basically all just societies of people, and we can all be flakes. Ayn Rand, Jeff Bezos, other people who believe in reality understand that you can believe anything you want, but at the end of the day, you're going to be dead in those societies. And hopefully you're going to be alive and flourishing in all of these societies that have lost our moral way. We've lost our way, not even moral way. Even I don't know what's moral about having a death cult. So that is not, as James said at the beginning of this excellent discussion, having a government or a belief system that loves death is something that should be rejected by every single Westerner. And frankly, and I agree with some of the people that are very strong on this, if you are in a country that is a Western country and you believe in death cults, you should be out of here. We don't need people that thinks that dying is a good thing. We need people who want to go work, create something, take care of their families, not commit crimes. And if they want to do something amazing, I hope they can do it. I would love to help them. And if they want to just lead a quiet life and not rock the boats, as it were, that's great too. But as soon as that person starts to attack me, my family, or my country, or utter things like we need to annihilate Israel or the United States or the West, which is what all of these people are saying, then there's a whole different ballgame. And in what has happened to the Western countries, and we have lost our way because of our so-called humanities teachers, again, the great irony is that we believe that people who tell us that we're really evil and we've suppressed others and oppressed others and so on and so forth, that we deserve to be miserable and shot at and blown up and killed. That's what they've taught us. And that's what they are teaching today at Harvard and Columbia and so on. Where do you all think this anti-Semitism, anti-Westernism comes from? It isn't from most parents. Most parents want to take care of their families. It's from these elite, snobby, so-called intellectual, completely morally bankrupt parasites on society that are, by the way, mostly supported by capitalistic donations to their very well-endowed universities, ironically, to basically bring down the West. That's where this comes from. That's why we are at where we are in the position that we are in. And until we fundamentally reject those notions and talk about how success and human flourishing and opportunity and meritocracy are the most important things that a country can do while protecting the innocent people from harm, that's the only moral point of government. We are in trouble.
Yeah. You know, Jews for the extermination of Jews is a thing. Capitalists against capitalism also a thing. James, before I get your take on this tweet, I want to show you this video and get your thoughts on is this you know, maybe this isn't going to happen next time people are in a situation like this. Daniel, is it ready? There it is.
Looks like they're just finishing up the... Why are you... We're on your side! We're on your side! Holy shit! We're on your side! We're on your fucking side!
Yeah, this is we've shown this before. This is a few white guys when a Black Lives Matter riot march walks by, you know, giving them the thumbs up, getting a window smashed, shouting to explain what thumbs up means, shouting we're on your side and getting another window smashed. But surely, James, that's a one-time thing. Next time the we're on your side is gonna work out, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. You know, there's a great point here that everyone, of course, keeps making, but never seem, well, not everyone, obviously, we keep making, that everyone keeps ignoring. Israel is really taking it for Western civilization right now. If Israel weren't there and in the way, what Iranian-sponsored terror group would be now killing Europeans and Americans and any destroying civilization as best they could? You know, if they killed all the Jews in Israel, do you think they'd stop and worry about the Jews in America, or frankly worry about the Christians in America? No, they're taking, Israel is on the front line of the battle for civilization itself. And but you know, part of me also has a second thought. Even if Israel weren't there, even if it were French, more French, yeah, where there was the Nice bombing in 2016, or, you know, I can go through a list of terrorist actions in Europe too over recent decades. But would it really make a difference? Wouldn't the French and the British and the Americans be still apologizing? Oh yes, well, you kill us this time, we won't take action. You know, we'd still have the same altruist philosophy that would disarm us and tie one arm behind our back in any defensive action. Look at the way George Bush responded to 9/11. We didn't fight a real war anywhere. We didn't fight in Afghanistan. Even if you thought that Iraq was the place to go, we didn't fight a real war in Iraq. We tied hands behind our people's backs. We were there to educate the people, to you know, turn them into a democracy, to nation build. It was all an altruistic exercise, not an exercise in self-defense, which would have meant going after the terrorists and killing them, killing as many of the terrorists as we could lay our hands on. It's absolutely insane. The dominant moral idea in the West enables the dominant moral idea in the Islamic world. It really does. And the minute that the West changes and gets some moral backbone and some clarity and some self-esteem and the realization that they have a right to defend themselves and that these monsters don't have a right to kill them, then it won't change fundamentally the culture in the Islamic world, no. But at least it will tell them that we have a sense of moral righteousness, we have the moral high ground, and we will kill you if you threaten us. That would change the situation. But what needs to happen is a moral change, a philosophical change. People need to check their premises, as Ayn Rand used to say. And if we don't check our moral premises about the moral clarity of acting in self-defense, they'd kill us and would say, oh, just don't kill us so much. Don't kill us so much better. And don't worry, we won't bomb your hospitals and your mosques. And don't worry, we'll come in with food aid and we'll help you out. As if that would change the mentality in the Islamic world today. It would not, it will not.
Yeah. Zorab in the chat says, my Muslim friends mostly hate Israel, but they are nice to me. Later he says, because we are friends. Yes, because you're on their side, you know. I'm not sure this is going to end as well for you as you think it might, but okay, let me go to the...
And where is he? Where his Muslim friends, whose side he's on, he's in, is safe. Would that be true in Iran? Would that be true in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, I think he's in London, but let us know in the chat if you
well,
want
head to where the Palestinian Authority is in charge. Head to Iran and let me know how that works out for you there.
It's not going to work out well for you in London either. But
how sick and sad is that?
Yeah. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Thank you, Roland, for the super chat. Roland says, more money for the Zionist propaganda. We appreciate it. Thank you, Deborah, for the super chat. Deborah says, Tzedakah Sheli, my charity is the, I guess, direct translation, although we are proudly a for-profit company. Thank you, Bronx Guy Gun Hill Road, for the super chat. Thank you, Equal to Reality, for being a member of the YouTube channel for 40 months, which is pretty much since we launched YouTube memberships. Equal to Reality says, I write a piece blaming all this hate and evil ideology on Substack. Shameless plug. But are you... I'm not sure I understood that sentence.
Substack is the cause of terrorism? I'm not sure what was being said there. I don't think Substack is the cause of terrorism. But
I don't think that's what he meant. I think he meant
okay.
He wrote the article, but if there is if you are elaborating anywhere in the chat, maybe Daniel can find it. Look, we're almost out of time, but I think this last video should be seen. There's a bunch more that I wanted to, maybe we'll do a follow-up because I have stuff that I want to show, but this needs to be seen. So let's see it. Viewer discretion is advised on this one.
لأنه نعمل حرب إنه نفرجي اليهود إنه إحنا مش إنه إحنا مش شاطرين، إحنا قوايا كمان. في ناس بحبوا فلسطين بدهم يحاربوا وبضحوا بدمهم عشان فلسطين. أنا بدي أهزمهم بالحرب، بدي أهزمهم.
بيعلمونا إنه الأقصى إلنا وإلنا يعني الحق، يعني إلنا فلسطين والأراضي كلها إلنا، لأنهم بسبب كذبهم وانتهاكاتهم إنهم يقولون إنه الهيكل تحت المسجد الأقصى، ولا مرة إنه يكون الهيكل تحت المسجد الأقصى.
أنا بقرأ اليهود.
بعلمونا إن الصهيونية هم أعدائنا وهم أهم إشي لازم يسوي فيهم عملية.
يعني انهم بيعلمونا بالمدرسه انهم ارهابيين
بيحكوا لنا عن اليهود انهم هدول مش منيح وهدول بقتلوا قاعدين بشبابنا. بيحكوا لنا هدول غدارين، وبيحكوا لنا انه هدول بغدرونا، هدول مش منيح. اذا بطعن بدعس عليهم. عمل عمليات.
كيف يعني؟
الدعس، عمليات الدعس، عمليات الطعن والاشتباك المسلح في المخيمات.
ايش اكيد هدول العمليات ترفع الراس ولفلسطين. العمليات هاي تاعت الدعس والسكاكين هاي اشي بيرفع الراس لفلسطين.
اذا بدك بطلع بستشفى.
We've seen enough. Look, the people you're seeing in this video are innocent. Children in a war, no matter what they say, even if they actually do what they're talking about doing, and of course Israel should, you know, if they're coming at you, you should shoot them. That doesn't mean they're not innocent. Children are innocent. They don't know what they're doing. It is the despicable adults who are doing this to their children, who are guaranteeing that peace is not an option. It's only acknowledge that you're at war, or be killed. Those are Israel's options. Michael, parting thoughts and work.
No, Hitler Youth. I mean, this is the, you know, and it's the indoctrination of kids, and it's done with our tax dollars, UNRWA, helping out and funding all of this crap in Qatar and Iran and so on. No one should be surprised. This is it really shows how ridiculous people have become, and frankly, also the news should do a better job of backing up their stories with these kinds of things. These kids really do want to murder Jews. And they really will. And we certainly have enough Hollywood movies, including a lot of these idiot Hollywood people who signed up against Israel, who've been in shows where little kids will martyr themselves and do what the last kid said, which is to blow himself up in order to kill Americans or Israelis or any other people. And this is all considered sort of okay. The other thing that is remarkable to me is that somehow capitulating to this or acknowledging it or somehow believing that it's sort of okay, how does that ever going to be better for anyone? If you really do care about other people, how do you think this is better for these kids? And how do you think this is going to end for these kids, a life of crime? And I'll say one last thing. There is a growing number of people in the US that believe that we should not be imprisoning criminals in general. They believe that. They believe that we should allow theft, we should allow assault. Murder might be considered a problem, but, you know, if there's extenuating circumstances, it's probably okay. If you're here as an illegal immigrant, we don't worry about the word illegal because, frankly, everybody should be allowed into the country. And most of these idiots don't pay taxes that support this, so they don't mind. But if they're illegal immigrants who just happen to commit felonies, that's sort of okay, too. And it's a completely consistent view that civilization is bad and that anarchy and death are good. And that's what we have a problem with. And it's really so simple, but human beings like to repeat. I guess they just like to repeat history. They just can't stand it. That we do have parts of our societies that are flourishing beautifully and giving more people more opportunities than ever before. Michael Kaufman, 2Fs on LinkedIn.
Yeah, you know, Zoran Mandani wants to defund the police and also arrest Netanyahu. I don't know if he's going to do it himself once the police has no funding. But yeah, Akira mentions in the chat the video we just showed is old. They're not kids anymore. Yeah, we don't know where those kids are, but we can guess. And Equal to Reality, thank you for the super chat. Equal to Reality clarifies, it says, I have a Substack post in which I blame all the evil on academia for teaching this on my Substack page. James, parting thoughts, and where can people find you?
Well, academia, as Dr. Kaufman points out, is primarily responsible. It's the college professors at Western universities. It's American universities where people are getting the idea that force and violence is morally justifiable. It's where they're getting the idea that, combined with that, the moral relativism, how dare we in the West stand up for ourselves? But look at what we just saw. I mean, it's despicable child abuse. It is intellectual, psychological, psychoepistemological, I'll use all those words, child abuse, horrific child abuse, to turn them into murderous little monsters who, look, all you can do is, like you say, it really, their moral status, if they're shooting a gun at you, doesn't affect your right to defend yourself back. But as the person just pointed out, they're older now, but they've been brainwashed and conditioned. Now there's nothing to do but fight them because they are death machines. They've been turned into conditioned robots by their educators. And can you imagine a parent actually teaching their child the kind of thing that would get them killed like that? Teaching their child racist hatred like that. These are little children who are talking about stabbing Jews just because they're Jews, running them over in vehicles, bombing themselves if necessary to bomb them. We are in a desperate place when we give any moral sanction to that culture, to that. No, I'll even criticize Mr. Trump, who went to Saudi Arabia and said, okay, you guys aren't like a Western nation. You do you, we'll do us, even if it means that there's no free speech and women have no rights, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So long as that mentality exists in the West, so long as we don't stand up for Western values of freedom and individual rights, these people will be given the moral green light to so abuse their children psychologically that they turn themselves into little murder and suicide machines. But talk about the ultimate capper on a discussion of the death cult that is Palestinian culture. You can see it. They're teaching their children that it is noble to kill Jews just because they're Jews and to commit suicide if necessary in the process. It is sick, twisted, evil. And we have to be able to stand up and say, that is evil itself. That is the enemy of all civilization itself. Until and unless the West gets its premises checked, as I put it before, we are doomed to suffer the consequences of this generation after generation in perpetual war. I'm James Stevens Valiant, and under that name you can find me at Facebook, where I'm answering questions almost every day, and I'm here frequently at the Ayn Rand Center UK, where we are giving you a perspective, ladies and gentlemen. It's hard to find anywhere else, but this is the perspective, the only perspective that can help end this perpetual war and end the psychological abuse of children that you're seeing in the Islamic world so commonly. Most Palestinian children, I'm sure, this is just the opinion that's reflected. So please do consider becoming a paid subscriber to the Ayn Rand Center UK, where we're fighting the battle for civilization.
Yeah, and Zurab says, James is correct. My favorite on this channel. Thank you for that. Well, on behalf of, I actually should be offended, but
Thank
I'm
you.
not. And we're gonna keep pointing out what the Palestinians are, and they're doing it as well, but we're gonna do it in English. As much as people try to tell you otherwise, we're also going to talk about the direct alternative to being a death cult. We're going to do that in Orange County, in person, in the most inspiring objectivist conference you will ever attend, the Irreplaceable Spark Conference. Michael, can you give us I'm putting you on the spot here, but can you tell us, just because people know you on this channel as a commentator, tell us what they don't know, what you do when you're not.
I think the question is whether all this stuff is abstract or just relevant to political current news, and this kind of stuff. And I can tell you that the ideas that we talk about here and discuss are foundational for me in the work that I do and in my everyday life. And I will talk about how these ideas were so important to getting me through the difficulties and obstacles in my life, developing new drugs for patients with cancer and with other serious diseases. And if you don't have a philosophical basis and something to fall back on when things get tough, and they always do in real life, then it makes it very, very difficult to push through and succeed in the end. So we'll talk about that. And I think this is real life great stuff. And I'm looking forward to talking about reason, purpose, and self-esteem, and how many of the ideas that we talk about on the show are so critical to everyday living.
Yeah, and
I just have to say, what a contrast to the death cult of the Islamic world today. Here is a man using his mind to the fullest to develop new cancer treatments. That is a man fighting for the value of human life. That is a man using reason. That is a man, and look at these worshipers of death. These people twisting the minds of young people to make them think that it's cool to just kill Jews just because they're Jews, and maybe even kill themselves in the process of doing it. I'm sorry, the contrast was so stark and so sharp in my mind. Yeah, I am going to, after discussing this for the better part of the last 2 years, I am going to need the psychological fuel of the Irreplaceable Spark Conference, where I can be inspired by heroes like Dr. Kaufman. Excuse the emotion.
And you will get that psychological fuel, and you will get actionable advice for how to actually, get there yourself. So make sure you sign up, objectivism.co.uk. The Daily Objective, the reality show, return tomorrow. Thanks, James. Thanks, Michael. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Cheers.